Hey everyone, welcome to another lockdown episode of the Plant Yourself podcast, COVID-19 edition, USA lockdown day 6 maybe? I'm going to stop counting because it's getting harder and harder. Today's Wednesday. I know it's Wednesday because I woke up with an urge to go to the dump, and the dump is closed on Wednesdays. So I know whenever I think I should go to the dump today, then it must be a Wednesday. Went yesterday, so the urge to go to the dump has nothing to do with the amount of garbage and recycling that we have to move out of the mudroom. It's just perverse. It's just when I can't, then I must. When I can't, then I want. You might have been experiencing some of that over these few days. There's places that I want to go that I would never go if I could. But now I'm just thinking, boy, it'd be really nice to go to Joann Fabrics or Michael's Crafts, or maybe we could buy some elastic and sew masks. This feeling of restriction just makes all the parts of me that chafe when I feel like my autonomy is being limited. Just want to act out. Yesterday was a good day physically. I didn't do a lot of thinking work aside from yesterday's podcast. I'm finding it really, really hard to concentrate mentally. Physically seems to be somehow easier. So I went out yesterday to prepare some garden beds, and we're 2 months behind in terms of preparation. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's just not going to go in the ground. We'll have to rely on neighbors, local farmers for that. But there is a whole bunch of things that we could start planning in the next 2 weeks. And today's probably roughly the last frost day. We might get a little frost tomorrow, but essentially, according to the USDA zones, we're about at the frost day. So we'll push it back a couple more days, and so by by beginning of May, a whole bunch of stuff needs to have gone in the ground. So we're looking at our seeds. This year, of course, we're focusing much more on calorie crops than just, nutrient crops. So things like grains, potatoes, legumes, other root vegetables, and oil seeds like sunflowers and oil seeds like pumpkins. So they really can provide calories. Because we've been talking, we moved out to this piece of property so that we could practice this self-sufficiency, because I'm kind of a prepper. I kind of think that stuff is going to happen. I studied public health, and you can't study public health without being exposed to the idea of infectious disease and pandemic, even though it hasn't been really on anyone's mind for at least 10 years since SARS, and unless you work with the exotic diseases like Ebola that aren't native to here and can be caught really early. In 1993 or 4, I read a book called The Coming Plague by Laurie Garrett, and she had written this in the wake of the AIDS crisis, the HIV epidemic of the 80s. And basically what she said, and this, for those of you who remember it, it was, earth-shaking. For many of us, it was earth-shaking, particularly for certain communities, for certain continents like Africa. And one thing, and she said basically, AIDS, as bad as it is nothing compared to a disease that could be spread more easily. So she says, imagine a disease, like the terrible thing about AIDS was that you could be infected for months and not know it. And therefore you would go out and infect lots of other people. And AIDS wasn't infectious because it was easy to catch, right? It was essentially a blood transmitted disease or a mucous membrane transmitted disease. It wasn't something airborne. You couldn't cough on someone and give them AIDS. Mosquitoes couldn't transmit AIDS. So in many ways, as bad as AIDS was in terms of the window of viral shedding, it was a real blessing that it was so hard to catch. And so it did not become the pandemic. But she said, imagine a disease that, like AIDS, that could have a long latency period and was as lethal. So that book long book, lots of references. It was in my second year in public health school that I read it. Really shook me, and just looking at the history. So when you look at the last, the years I've been alive, from 65 on, we haven't had a terrible flu. We haven't had a pandemic like that. And so if you're talking, if you're not a historian, if you don't look to the whole story, if you don't look to 1918, if you don't look to see that we have roughly every 100 years, we have a global pandemic, and it's 2020, like a lot of us were not surprised. Of course, we're like shocked and taken off guard by what seems to be a total black swan event. Like, oh my God, how could this happen? But, it's like the lottery. Your chances of winning the lottery are almost nil, but someone's going to win just about every lottery. So for them, that the black swan event, from your perspective, is actually a daily occurrence, not even remarkable. So that's kind of what this is. And so we moved here because we thought, I don't know if it's going to be terrorism or a global pandemic or the income inequality is going to become so bad that we're going to have, a revolution or a recession. But I knew that the world we're living in is unsustainable. And we didn't move out here just to get away and survive. Like, we don't have guns. We don't have stockpiles. We came here, we've got, we can survive here for about a month. We do have a wood stove. We have a backup generator. We have a Berkey water filter, a big one that sits on the kitchen countertop. So we can go down, if we have no more electricity and we can't use the well pump, we can go down with buckets to the lake and pour through the Berkey and still have drinking water. But we didn't do this to survive the apocalypse. We're not doing this like, billionaires building houses on remote islands and stockpiling them for decades. We came here to practice post-apocalyptic living, to figure out once things collapse, once Western civilization really collapses under its own weight from the animals that we eat, from the CAFOs, the factory farms, from the way we're destroying the environment, from the carbon emissions, from economic inequality. Once it collapses, whichever card gets pulled out and the whole thing comes tumbling down, what can we do? What would the new world look like? And I am really longing for the new world. It's unfortunate that we don't get to the new world by just waking up. That it looks like we are going to be going through a series of cataclysms, and they're going to be very painful for a lot of us. And I kind of organized my life so that I might not, and my family would not be among those touched by sort of, high probability scenarios. Like, we're not living in New York City, where everyone's life depends on trucking, all right, and depends on electrical grid. We are out here where we can be a little more self-sufficient. But really what we're looking for is, how can we contribute? How can we play with models? We don't know what the world's going to look like. We don't know what the future will bring. I don't know if I'm going to survive into it. But still, the call for me was, can we start playing with models of a new way of living? And maybe that new way of living looks very much like a lot of old ways of living. A horticultural society, small tribes, hyper-local, and maybe we still have this beautiful internet. Maybe we can still have high tech that both in the manufacture of the equipment and in the way it's distributed and the way power is distributed through it, honors a greater spirit than that of predatory capitalism. But we came out here to play with new models of human society, new models of agriculture, of culture based on that agriculture, because every society is defined by how it eats and how it gets its food and how it produces its food. And so that's why we return to the land. And so now here we are, and we've kind of been dabbling with stuff, but all of a sudden it's like, take this seriously. So we're out clearing beds, trying to figure out, do we want to put buckwheat here for 3 weeks? Yeah, the soil isn't that great. We're not going to be able to buy all these amendments. And if those amendments, that compost and the minerals and the phosphates and all this and the bone meal and the blood meal and, the non-veganic stuff and the animal poo and the veganic stuff, if it comes from the outside, then we're not self-sufficient. Then we're stealing fertility from somewhere else. So the idea was, can we generate a fertility loop on our own land so that we don't have to rely on fossil fuels for the transport of the stuff, so we don't have to degrade other land to prop up this land, right? That's the big problem with these, free range, the cows eating grass on these, farms that are supposedly eco-friendly. The math doesn't work out. They don't feed the cows on what they grow on that land. It's all imported from somewhere else. It's fake accounting. So could we veganically grow food on this land to support us and neighbors? And not all of it. We'd still, we're not about total self-reliance, but we're talking about community self-reliance. Because, if we're just totally self-reliant, someone with a gun can come and just take it all. We've just made it easier for them. So we're talking about building a community spirit of helping each other. So yesterday was all about, we mowed some of the back meadow in preparation for, in preparation for either growing a healthier meadow so that we get green manure, or maybe even planting some hemp or wheat or more, buckwheat, and bringing it actually to fruition. So as we're making all these decisions, it's a question of investment. Like, what are we investing in? What if everything goes back to normal in 2 months and we've planted a whole bunch of buckwheat and we've put all this work and effort into a healthy grass meadow, and then all of a sudden Costco's back open, Whole Foods is back open, Weaver Street Market's back open, Food Lion, Harris Teeter, and we've sort of done this for nothing. We're not living off of these stores. How would that feel? And almost all the decisions we're making these days are framed somehow as investments. Like, is it worth it for me to learn how to use animation software? Is it worth it for me to keep doing these daily podcasts to help people to generate goodwill? Is this going to help my business at all? Maybe this will be the biggest waste of time and I should have been building something else. And so when it comes to the idea, like, we can't know what's a good investment. If I knew what good investments were, my 401k wouldn't look like it does right now. All right, I would have put it in silver or copper or just bullion under my pillow. I certainly wouldn't have kept it in the money markets and the index funds that everyone told me were the best bet for someone my age. So obviously, we're very fallible and flawed when it comes to investment. So I was thinking, like, what is the guiding principle for me? And it is that thing about, I don't know what the future is, but I want to create, and create as in creativity, I want to put forward a model of how things could be in the future, a model of how things could be better. Even if I don't survive, even if this doesn't turn out to be the apocalyptic pandemic that it looks like it might be, we might just go back to normal. They might find a vaccine. They might find a cure. All right, we don't know. But in terms of our garden, I'm looking for, how can I contribute an experiment, a mutation, as it were. So the virus is mutating. So can humans mutate as well? And we can see what works, what will survive this. And I was brought back to a song that I haven't heard in a long time. It was written in 1983. And yeah, I'm going to inflict it on you now. So before I do, I will just remind you, in case you want to click stop, that there's a tip jar for Plant Yourself during this time where not much else is going on for me financially. And if you want to support the show and support me and my family, you can do so at plantyourself.com/gift. And with that out of the way, the song is called Fashioned in the Clay. It was written by Elmer Beal, early 80s. So a time when we were worried about nuclear war, Soviet Union. But if you just swap out a few of the details, it's an incredibly prescient song for right now. I'm just taking a quick look because I have 2 minutes. I'll come back. When it seems like everyone is worried for themselves, making plans for fallout shelters, stocking up the shelves, living in the fast lane, staying high at night, thinking that by accident we'll blow out all the lights. Look now at the potter whose wheel is spinning round, shaping with her hands the past and future from the ground. Cups that will be filled and drunk so warm in winter time, plates and bowls for dinners served with candlelight by wine. And she believes by her work it is easy to see that the future is more than the following day. It's fashioned securely in the clay. Come and see the farmer working in his fields, hoping for the sun and rain to guarantee his yields. Like a seed the wind has blown to unfamiliar ground, he waits to see what fate will bring as each year rolls around. And he believes by his work it is easy to see that the future is more than the following day. It's fashioned securely in the clay. Elsewhere there are lovers in a warm embrace, happy with their plans to carry on the human race. Now their baby cries and wonders if it's all alone. Soft the voices reassure there will always be a home. And they believe by their work it is easy to see that the future is more than the following day. It's fashioned securely in the clay. So if you had been worried that tomorrow wouldn't come, look to see the ones whose lives are following the sun, and the hope that springs so clearly from the work they do will spread a little further when it's found a place in you. And we believe by our work it is easy to see that the future is more than the following day. It's fashioned securely in the clay. Fashioned securely in the clay. So the future doesn't feel secure to me. My future, any particular future. But I do have faith that there will be a future, and it might not be the one that I envision, and it might not be the one that includes me. But by contributing my own best guess, by contributing my own creativity to the problem of how humans can live harmoniously on this earth with each other and with the rest of creation, that's what I'm investing in. And I'm curious for you, where are you putting your investment? If you have any extra time, if you're not a healthcare worker working 18-hour days, if you're not doing your normal thing or doing more of it or doing extra or hustling, if you have time and space, what is your investment philosophy? I'd love to know. You can let me know in the comments, on the blog, on plantyourself.com. on the Facebook page, facebook.com/plantyourself, on Instagram, Ask Howie, or just email me, hj@plantyourself.com. And again, the tip jar is open at plantyourself.com/gift. Every little bit helps. If you are fortunate enough to be financially good right now, you can consider making contribution. If you are struggling, no guilt. I want this to be available for everyone. So I totally get it. And let's create a future that can be better than what we have right now and better than what we've ever had. So thanks for watching or listening. And as always, be well, my friends.